Hello there and welcome back to another edition of the Hot Lap Classic Remastered. This time we'll take a look at the 1990 Mazda Savanna RX-7 GTX. The final third generation RX-7 to go around the course and the final Savanna RX-7, because of course we had the GT Turbo not an awful long time ago, I don't think, but now it's the turn of the GTX. And Savanna RX-7s in general have been very, very quick around this course, so I'm very interested to see how this one gets along. In terms of third generation RX-7s, I'm not a big fan of them, if I'm going to be completely honest. This sort of wedgy 80s Japanese sports car isn't really for me. Mazda wasn't particularly shy about the fact that this car is inspired by the Porsche 924 and 944, and while I think this is certainly a better car than the 924 and 944, far more interesting, I'm not really into the style of them. It's the same with the third generation Supra. I'm not a big fan of that either. Compared to sort of what these cars would become into the 90s, I think they don't look as good in their 80s form, but nevertheless, that's each to their own. This one, of course, has the race mod. Not quite as interesting in the design as we saw on the Infini 3, and not quite as 70s as the GT Turbo was. This one is a very similar style to that we found on the RX-7 Cabriolet, which was actually one of the very, very first cars to go around the course. This sort of two-tone blocky style. I don't dislike it. Again, not the most interesting thing, but there's definitely worse race mods in this game. I quite like the wing it provides on the back, and the big Mazda on the rear window as well, I think looks quite cool. The colour options as well for this are quite cool as well. The Cabriolet has two, and then the GTX has two other ones. I think the choice on this one is between a blue and this sort of pinky red that I've gone with over the blue, because you see enough blue cars in this series. Front engined rear-wheel drive, 380 horsepower, 1,067 kilos. Not the most statistically impressive car in the world, but then again, these cars are usually quite quick. The Mazda Savanna RX-7 GTX is going to have 6 laps of the Motorsports Land track in order to set the best time it possibly can. Our current leader is the Suzuki Escudo Pikes Peak version. That car set a time of a 25.696. The RX-7 GTX is unlikely to beat that. In terms of where this is going to go, as mentioned, Savanna RX-7s have been very, very quick around this track. The slowest one, I mean, it's obviously the Cabriolet. We won't talk about that because that was one of the very first cars to take on the course. There was also the Infini 3, that set a time of a 30.59. and the GT Turbo set a time of a 30.3. So, I mean, statistically, I'm not expecting an awful lot out of this, but maybe I'll be shocked with this car's speed. Usually these RX-7s are pretty darn quick, so that 30.260 on its first flyer. Yeah, that's pretty quick. This does not feel as nice to drive as a normal RX-7. I will very quickly point that out. Most of the time with these, especially with the FDs, but I think also the GT Turbo was like this as well. They're very nice, sort of settled cars to drive. They hold their power very well. Lots of traction. No real hiccups around corners. Obviously, you can get it sideways if you really try hard enough. This isn't that. This is completely unpredictable, actually. I'm not a huge fan of the way this drives. I can't remember if the Infini 3 was like this. I remember that drove alright from what I remember. Well, I say from what I remember. What I actually mean is I don't remember driving it, and if I don't remember driving something, usually that's a sign it was alright to drive. God, it's that left-right complex there. It just throws the rear end out on it, which is a big shame, because the rest of this lap was quite quick. Yeah. This is not a nice car to drive, as mentioned. It is very quick, though. Cannot deny the overall speed of the RX-7 GTX here. Funnily enough, we had another RX or a Mazda GTX not long ago, the Familia, and that was a lovely car to drive, and despite its power, it was very quick. This is again, very quick car, but this one isn't, despite its power, this one is more surprisingly quick. 29.962. It does get into the under 30 though, so I mean, you can't argue with that, but it is not a nice car to drive this at all. It is so slidey and all over the place. It's, yeah, I'm almost a bit saddened by the fact that this is the Savanna RX-7 that breaks into the under 30 club, one that drives as abhorrent as that does. Yeah, Sector 1, to be honest with you, that sort of second lap was very, very clean. My actual Sector 2 times are pretty sort of consistent. I suppose that means that I didn't actually nail it until that final one there, but yeah, not a terrific car to drive, it has to be said, but it is quick. Like, there's no denying it, it's just not particularly nice to drive. A 29.962 will place this into 178th, goes in between the Nissan Stagia 260 RS, which was also not very nice to drive, and the Chevrolet Camaro Z28 30th anniversary. It's quicker than the RX-7 Type RB, quicker than the Celica GT4, TVR Chimera. Supposedly more interesting enough to this is it's quicker than the Skyline GTST Type N and the Interplay 323, which are up there as the quickest sort of starter cars. Not quite as quick as the Skyline GTS4. I think if it handled just a little bit nicer though, it could absolutely be quicker than that. And again, I mean, I think the 323 GTX might be the quickest starter car. No, tell a lie, the Pulsar. I think the Pulsar might be the quickest of the bunch, but I'd really have to go through this and actually look once everything's done and dusted. But yeah, not a nice car to drive. It does have to be said. So I wouldn't pick it, but I'm sure many people have, and I suppose the fact that you do pick it, I suppose has shown dividends here, because it was quick, it just wasn't particularly good to drive. Anyways, that's it for this episode. Thank you all very much for watching. Join me next time when I'll be driving something completely different. Until then, farewell.